Hi, Zach Reiser here, and welcome back to another Bass Effects Review video. Today I'm going to be getting into the Bliss Audio Condor. This pedal is quite a Swiss Army knife from Bliss. It's listed as kind of an EQ pedal, and of course it can do that, but it also can do some pretty solid distortion, overdrive tones, some phasing, wah effects, volume effects, and then of course some low-pass filtering as well. So with that in mind, let's jump right into it. As usual, here's my bass's dry tone Dingwall ABZ Six String on the neck pickup. All right, let's start simple and let's show off kind of the gain options available on the Condor. So I have it set up essentially at unity right now. And with the pedal on, sounds very similar. All right. Now, if you want, you can use it as a clean boost. There's a lot of clean headroom on tap. So if I turn just the volume knob, I'm getting that clean boost. Now, turning the gain volume up, I start getting into some soft clipping overdrive, and I've turned the volume back down to be roughly a unity volume. Let's hear a little bit of that. You can hear just a little bit of fizziness on the side of the note. Gain at max. I have the gain knob maxed, but it does not stop here. At any point in time, you can hit this drive switch and it essentially turns the Condor into an overdrive. So let's put the gain back at noon. Without the drive switch enabled. Just a tiny bit of hair with the drive. Let's hear one of these higher gain settings with a pick. Now, the amount of dirt on the Condor does not really stop there. The bass knob is kind of completely connected to the gain staging of the pedal. So right now I've had it at noon, which is no bass boost or cut. If you turn the bass knob to the left, it's going to cut bass. So I'm not going to use this pretty much at all, but I'll show what that does. So with the bass knob at noon, and then if I turn it left, you can hear my bass gets very anemic. So for a bass player, you're not going to turn it left at noon very often. But turning it to the right will increase your gain. Okay, so now let's hear what max drive really has to offer. So I have the bass boost completely cranked, the gain completely cranked, and the drive knob on. Now, the low-pass filter, if you have the little toggle switch on the left, is essentially a tone control. So you can roll off a little bit of that high end if you want as a nice kind of coloring or shaping effect. So without the Condor, my bass's full frequency spectrum. And then with that subtle high-end roll-off. Nice if you want to kind of get a little bit more of a vintage tone. Okay. Now I'm going to get to the other low-pass filter sections in a little bit when they're more of an effect rather than just an EQ shaping device. Okay, now the mids toggle is super expansive. So when that little switch is in the bottom left position, it's a very wide frequency band, but it's a subtle amount of resonance, so to speak. In the middle, it's a little bit thinner, a little more resonant, and then at the right setting, it's super skinny with a really high peak. But you can cut or boost the mids here, and the frequency knob on the top goes way down to, I think, like 125 hertz, all the way up to like 4K on the right side. So I have it right around what I think is about 500 hertz, and let's hear what happens when you cut or boost some of those mid frequencies. So at noon, and then let's scoop some of the mids. Here you get that kind of undefined boxy character when you scoop mids out. And now let's boost the mids a little bit. Now, like I said, that frequency goes all the way up to 4K. So even though it's labeled as mids, for a bass player, you actually can add kind of a little bit of upper end clarity if you boost the high mids or like way up in those kilohertz ranges. So here's flat. I've cranked the frequency knob up quite a bit. Can't really tell that I'm doing anything, but now we boost those high mids. You'll hear just a little bit of pick attack clarity. And now, because I've boosted the high mids, it almost can sound like the low end is a little bit thin just by your ears kind of being tricked. So let's boost the bass and let's roll the treble down a little bit. Okay, so far I have only demonstrated the Condor in terms of its kind of tone shaping ability, but now it's time to talk about the Condor as a modulator. And this is really where I think the Condor is incredibly unique for what it brings to the table. So as usual, you can ramp or via expression manipulate any of the knobs on the surface on any Chase Bliss pedal, but also on the Condor. So let's go through and show what happens when you ramp some of the different knobs on the pedal. Starting with volume. Now this seems simple, but all of a sudden you have a tremolo in the Condor. So if you don't use tremolo very often and you want a really nice, just simple, lush sounding tremolo, it's here for you on the Condor. So here is some of that volume ramping. Now, of course, while you're modulating, you always have that dirt or gain available at any point in time. And so if I click on the drive switch, now my tremolo gets that nice kind of dirty, gritty tremolo sound. I've turned on my Boss OC2 on the pure sub signal. Sounds like this. Okay. Now I'm running that into the same tremolo setup with a slightly faster tremolo, and you get some sweet synthy choppiness. And one last example with the volume knob. I've plugged in an expression pedal, and so now I'm controlling the volume with my foot, and I'm running just the Condor into a little bit of delay. So remember, the volume swelling happening here and also the overdrive happening here is coming from the Condor at the same time. The only thing that wasn't the Condor was the little bit of delay for some ambience. So now I'm going to be ramping the frequency knob. And depending on where you have the mids knob set, this is a super, super powerful knob to ramp. You can go from phasers to wah effects, even close to kind of some univibe stuff. So let's start with the mids boosted, and I'm going to show how different the character gets depending on where you have that little switch set on the bottom. Okay, now let's go to the middle setting. And now going to the scooped side of the mids. Middle position. Now this is pretty subtle, but if you click that dirt or drive on, let's slow the rate down. Now switching from ramping to expression control with the frequency knob, and you get essentially a wah pedal. All right, it's time. We got to ramp the low-pass filter. Being a synth lover, I can't help but love the sound of modulated low-pass filters. And the Condor gives you 3 different flavors of a low-pass. A 1-pole, which is essentially just a very subtle low-pass filter, a 2-pole that's slightly resonant, and then a very resonant, super synthy 2-pole. So let's start with the least resonant single-pole low-pass filter. Now on to the 2-pole slightly resonant filter. And then the highly resonant 2-pole filter. Let's get back into synthland. So I've turned the Boss OC2 on. I kicked the drive button on the Condor, and I'm using that 2-pole highly resonant low-pass filter. I want to quickly show how the Condor's filter functions with dirt coming from another pedal. So this is my Boss OC2 running into an Earthquaker device's terminal fuzz. It sounds like this. And now let's run that into that highly resonant 2-pole filter on the Condor. And while we're here, the slightly less resonant 2-pole. And before I get off the low-pass filter, I want to also show it being foot-controlled. So now I'm using my expression pedal to control that 2-pole resonant filter with the same OC2 into terminal setup going into the Condor. Last couple things I want to show with the Condor is the fact that, of course, you can modulate multiple parameters at the same time. So now I'm modulating the low-pass filter in the 2-pole kind of slightly resonant mode, and then I'm modulating the frequency knob again. So I'm kind of getting like a phaser filter thing happening at the same time. So here's a little bit of that with my dry bass. I also have the drive turned on, by the way. Very similar setting, except now I turned the drive off and I'm running a really textural crystals effect into the Condor, so without the Condor. And then let's kind of dual filter that crystals. One more dual modulation setting for you. So I'm modulating the volume and the low-pass filter here, which is when you have it in the least resonant 1-pole side on the filter, you actually get kind of a harmonic tremolo. So here's a little bit of that. So same modulation settings, except now I've clicked over to that highly resonant 2-pole side, and I turned back on my Boss OC2 and that terminal fuzz for some really kind of synthy swells here. And if you want to make this a little bit more effective, let's turn on some nice juicy analog delay. So that is my demo of the Chase Bliss Audio Condor, an analog EQ, preamp, and filter that gives you preset control, expression control, and MIDI control. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe below. It really does help me out, and I will be back very soon with more pedals and effects reviews, tips and tricks videos, and performance videos. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.